everyone, welcome back to my channel, Everlynn's Books and Tea. It's June, and I hope everyone's reading months in June are going well. I can definitely say that this month has started off a lot better for me than the last couple of months, and I'm excited to see how far I get through my TBR this month. But today we are not focusing on our TBR. We are focusing on books that could be put on future TBRs because we are going to be looking at summer releases that are coming out between June and August of this year. I've scoured I don't know how many book blogs, book vlogs, new release lists, and I have finally narrowed it down to 8 books that I'm excited that are coming out this summer. These books range from fantasies to mysteries to romances, but they all give me that summer vibe feeling, and I'm excited to see if they are going to live up to my expectations. So the first book I'm excited about is a mystery thriller. It's written by Lucy Foley and is coming out this June. Lucy Foley is well known for mystery thrillers. She's released The Guest List, The Paris Apartment, and you can tell her books by their covers because she has a very distinctive cover. This book that is coming out is called The Midnight Feast. It is inspired by English folklore and is set in this place called the Manor, which is located along the Dorset coastline in Western England. I love books that have mystery and folklore incorporated because I always find it interesting how the authors use the folklore to kind of progress the story. So in this book, the Manor is a high-end luxury resort that caters to the ultra wealthy and provides them with this authentic wellness experience. The town that it's located in is a small village, a farming community, and they are not happy that this manor ended up being built here because they feel like it's an intrusion on their local woods. And when the manor attempted to privatize the beaches, obviously no one was happy about that. So there's been a lot of skirmishes between the locals and the manor staff all the way up until opening weekend when there is a fire at the manor and a body is found. So secrets are coming to the forefront, including a secret that first started 15 years ago. And now the investigation must begin with what has happened on the manor grounds in the last 36 hours. The guests may have secrets that they're hiding, the locals may have secrets that they're hiding, and there's been whispers of this folklore known as the Nightbirds, which are a avenging force that can be called to right wrongs that elude the law. So there's a lot going on in this book. There's a lot of suspects, it sounds like, and everyone seems to have an agenda, everyone has a past, and most importantly, not everyone is going to survive. So, like I said, I love books that incorporate folklore, and I'm excited to see what the conclusion of this book is, whether it is someone on the manor or the locals that are murdering these people, or if it's the folklore that has come to life. So that's the first book I'm excited this summer. Again, that's The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, and it comes out this June. Now, the second book I'm looking forward to is called The Rom-Commers. It comes out this June as well, and is written by Catherine Carter, who's also the author of The Bodyguard. This book sounds like just a lot of fun. It sounds like a good summer kind of lighthearted romance book. And the cover just kind of gives you the summery vibes and the colors that it is in. So this book follows Emma Wheeler. She's a screenwriter, and she just dreams of becoming a successful romantic comedy screenwriter. But she's been stuck in her town because her dad requires full-time care, and she's the one that is providing that for her family. One day, she's asked to rewrite a script for her personal screenwriting idol, Charlie Yates, and she ends up moving to LA for 6 weeks, leaving her dad in the capable hands, I assume, of her younger sister. But not all is as it seems when she arrives in LA, and Charlie Yates doesn't seem to be living up to her thoughts of who he is as a person. First up, he doesn't want to write with anybody, yet alone a nobody screenwriter. Second, he typically is known for these big blockbuster action films, not romantic comedies, and Emma comes to realize that he's only writing this romantic comedy to get a different script that he is more in love with greenlit in the future. And lastly, he thinks that love is a Ponzi scheme, so totally the opposite of Emma. But Emma is not one to go down without a fight. She ends up dragging Charlie through all of these different romantic comedy tropes, from enemies to lovers to forced proximity. And she even gets to the point that she may end up kissing him to show him that love is real and that love matters. So that's the premise of this book. I'm excited to see how Charlie deals with being dragged through all these romantic comedy tropes and kind of see how the author brings these two together, which I assume is what's going to happen by the end of the books. So again, this just sounds like a nice summery romantic read, and I'm excited to add it to one of my future TBRs. The next book is a YA fantasy that also has a touch of mystery, a touch of magical realism. It's called The Wilderness of Girls, and it's written by Madeline Claire Franklin, and this is going to be her debut novel. It also comes out this June. It follows a troubled teen named Rai, I believe is how you pronounce it, who's in foster care and ends up getting a job working for the Happy Valley Wildlife Preserves. One day she's in the woods and she comes across this very strange sight. She ends up seeing a pack of wolves guarding these 4 feral girls, and she's not quite sure what to make of it. She ends up being able to befriend the girls, and the girls tell her that they're actually princesses from this magical realm, and they've been raised by this person known as a prophet that they call Mother, and they have come to believe that Rai is their 5th long-lost sister. Rai doesn't know what to believe, but she ends up bringing the 4 girls back into civilization, where they are dubbed the Wild Girls of Happy Valley. But the girls really want to get back to where they are from, and they try to elicit Rai's help to do this. Rai knows that what the girls are saying is probably not the truth, but she is inspired by how authentic they are, how bold they are. And then one day, Rai ends up witnessing this strange phenomena, and now she doesn't know what is real, what is fantasy, and all the lines have kind of been blurred. So people who have already read this book and reviewed it say that if you like the Hazel Woods, you'll probably like this one. I definitely enjoy the Hazel Woods, kind of like that dark fairy tale vibe, and this book seems to possibly have that same kind of feeling to it. I feel like these lost stories are kind of interesting to see what the author does with the conclusion, where these girls are actually going to come from. So I'm looking forward to reading it just so I know where the girls come from and I know the conclusion of the story. So next up is another lost story that's actually called The Lost Story. It's by Meg Schaefer, and she actually had her debut novel last year in 2023 called The Wishing Game, which became pretty popular. It was a nominee for the 2023 Goodreads Choice Awards. So this book is coming out in July. It was inspired by The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. It follows 2 best friends, Jeremy and Rafe. When they were children, they vanished mysteriously in the vast forests of West Virginia, and they ended up reappearing mysteriously 6 months later without any explanation of where they've been or how they survived. Now it's 15 years in the future. Jeremy has become this well-known missing person private investigator. One day, Emily shows up at his doorstep because her sister has gone missing in those same woods that Jeremy and Rafe went missing when they were children. So she enlists his help in trying to find her sister. While Rafe does not remember anything about what happened to them when they were kids, Jeremy actually does, and he's been keeping it a secret. He knows that while they were missing as boys, they were actually in this magical realm that was filled with beauty and danger, and he believes that's where Emily's sister is at now. So now both Jeremy and Rafe need to take Emily back into the woods, back into this magical realm to find her sister and kind of confront what happened to them while they were children. So that's another lost story, and it sounds like a pretty good plot. And again, just kind of leaves up a lot of questions about, were they really in a magical realm, or is that just kind of how he processed what happened to them? And I guess we'll have to wait to read the book to find out what actually happened to Jeremy and Rafe when they were boys and see if they can find Emily's sister. The next book on my list initially got my attention because of its cover. There's actually 2 covers that it's being released with. The one that has the skyline with the bright colors around it is what grabbed my attention. And then I realized this book was a adult superhero book, which is a genre that I have never read before in the past. And then I also realized that this book was being written by Lisa Joel, who's well known for her dark psychological thrillers and not superhero books. So because of that, I decided to put it on my summer new release books to read list. And I am just interested to see how she takes her dark psychological thriller background and puts it into this adult superhero book. So this book follows Jessica Jones. She's a private investigator and no longer a superhero. She works in New York City, and one day a woman named Amber comes to visit her because her twins, Lark and Fox, have just been acting really different since they got back from the United Kingdom from visiting their father this summer. She says that their skin has been abnormally clear. They no longer have the ticks and habits that made them. And she's worried that something terrible kind of happened to them when they were in the United Kingdom. So Jessica ends up traveling to Essex to talk to their father. There she meets a troubled teenage girl named Bella who's living with her guardian, Deborah. And she comes to realize that Belle and Deborah may have had something to do with what happened to the twins. The twins were spending a lot of time with the two. And after further investigation, she realizes that there are these evil geniuses behind Belle and Deborah who are trying to make the world a better place, and they don't care who gets hurt or even killed to do that. So now Jessica must stop these evil geniuses from destroying the whole generation of youth. And during this, she's also working on her on-again, off-again relationship with Luke Cage. So there's a lot going on in this book, but I'm most interested to see how Lisa Jewell transitions from writing dark psychological thrillers to a adult superhero novel. We'll see. This will also be my first superhero book that I've ever read, so we'll see if I enjoy it. This one's coming out in July. So next up, I was back and forth about adding this one to my list. It's called Close Knit by Jenny Colgan. It's a romance book. Jenny Colgan is very well known for her romance books. I read one of her books back in December, one of her Christmas ones, and I wasn't super impressed by it. It wasn't the type of romance books that I typically read, but because of where this one is set, I decided to give her another try and see if I enjoy this one. So Close Knit is set in the Northern Islands of Scotland, which are the string of islands that stretch towards Norway. I absolutely love any type of book set in Scotland, especially Northern Scotland. It's one of my favorite places for books to be set at, which is why I want to give this book a chance and see what it's like. So this book follows Gertie McIntyre, who is born on the Northern Islands. That's the only place she's ever been. And she wonders what it would be like to expand her horizons if she ever got the courage to do so. She spends a lot of her time, especially in the dark, long winters, as part of this knitting club that is kind of run by her mom and her grandmother, where a bunch of women in the community kind of get together and knit, tell gossip, tell stories, and it's just a good form of camaraderie in this kind of like isolated area. So Gertie ends up developing this crush on Calum, who owns the local airline, and she ends up getting a job on this local airline that allows her to travel to the different local islands. So now she must decide if her future lies in the local skies or if she needs to go even further to find the adventure that she now craves. So it could be a fun book. I'm interested, like I said, to try her out again and see if all her stories are kind of similar or if that was just a fluke that I didn't like the first book that I read by her. So we'll try out Close Knit. It does sound like a good kind of like summer romance read, so we'll see how it is. So this next book is one of the books I'm most excited about. It's called The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. It's by India Holton. It's a fantasy romance historical book, and India Holton is known for her kind of fantasy rom-coms. There's a lot of humor in them, and she's written a series called the Dangerous Damsel series as well. So this book kind of gives me the Emily Wilde vibes to it, which is the other reason I'm super excited to see what this book is like. The basic premise of it is that there are these two rival ornithologists who are on the hunt through England for magical birds, and they end up having to work together for this competition because there's a lot of foul play and they don't know who else to trust but each other. And it says, for all may be fair in love and war, but this is ornithology. So it does, like I said, it does kind of give me the Emily Wilde vibes. You have these two kind of like professor scholars. Instead of hunting fairies, they're hunting magical birds, and they end up having to work together to reach a goal. So I'm excited for this book. It comes out in July. It's book 1 in the Love Academic series. So we'll see how it is. And I'm hoping it lives up to the hype that I am putting on it in my head. I can't wait to try it. I can't wait to read it and see. All right. And then the last book on my summer new release must reads list, that is the longest list name ever, is called The Spell Shop and is by Sarah Beth Durst. This is a fantasy romance mystery book. This book follows Kyla, who's a librarian, and she works with her assistant Kaz, who's a sentient spider plant, in the Great Library of Alysium, where they have to protect the magical books for the elite, who are the only ones that are allowed to practice magic to cast spells. But now a revolution is brewing, and the library ends up catching on fire. Her and Kaz save as many books as they can, and they end up fleeing to a faraway island where Kyla had grown up. The town, though, when she arrives, is in disarray, and she is surprised to find out that the Empire, with its magical spell books, has been siphoning magic from the island and creating destructive storms. And Kyla kind of feels partially responsible for this with her work in the library protecting magic for the elite. And she vows to make it up to the people who live on the island. But first, she needs an income, and she ends up deciding that she should make jam because apparently there's no jam on the island. So she uses a recipe that her parents had left her, as well as some magic. And with that, her cottage garden is filled with ripening berries. But then she realizes this is not enough either, and she decides to open a spell shop and sell unsanctioned spells on the island. But there are risks to opening a spell shop because the consequences of sharing magic with commoners is death. So that's the premise of the story. I'm not sure where the plot is going to end up in this book, but there is also some romance with it. It sounds like with her neighbor who keeps checking in with her, making sure that her house is intact and that her garden, continues to grow and is not in disarray. So they are calling this a romantic and cozy fantasy, so seems like a good summer read as well. It will be released in July, so I'm interested to check it out and see how it goes. So those are the 8 books I'm looking forward to this summer. Let me know if any of these books are on your radar to read this summer, and if not, what books you do have on your summer must-read new release list, if you have one of those, because it's a very long term. I hope you enjoy this video, and maybe I've given you some ideas of books to read this summer. If you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos by me, please hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, thank you again so much for joining me for this journey through the summer releases, and I will see you in my next video. Take care. Bye!